Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. So this is going to be part one of my 2,500 subscriber Q&A. There will be a part two that will follow this particular video sometime over the next 3 or 4 days. I do want to take some time though to welcome all my new subscribers. If you are new to this channel, please keep in mind this is not a hype-driven channel. I am taking you guys inside the antiques and collectibles trade with somebody, myself, who is also educated in economics and finance. In a word, I am red-pilling the antiques and collectible community on YouTube. And some of you guys out there, you're going to find a lot of my content triggering and or frustrating. There's going to be that one video or that one question that I answer that is going to set some of you off, where you're going to go, you know what, F that guy, I'm going to unsubscribe from the channel, I'm going to leave him a nasty comment. That is totally up to you. Again, this is not like any other YouTube channel out there. I am taking you inside the trade and teaching you the same fundamentals that I was taught decades ago that made me successful in the trade. Some of you have an open mind towards that. Some of you are not going to like a lot of the content on this channel as a result, because some of you think that you could just buy Magic the Gathering cards, Pokemon cards, vintage video games, whatever antique and collectible you're into, put them in a box for 10 or 20 years, pull them back out, sell them, and you're going to have a fortune. It doesn't work that way, guys. No collecting market has ever worked that way. Trust me, I know. There are risks and rewards that you must understand before operating in these markets. That being said, and I want to state this before I go any further, if any of you are triggered by any of the previous videos you may have watched, by any of the content I produce, please, instead of staying here with me and taking the red pill, take the blue pill. You'll go back inside the matrix. You'll fail to believe that the matrix exists. And in your mind, you will be a successful speculator in the trade on par with Timmy S. Poindexter Jr. And let me tell you something. Timmy S. Poindexter Jr. is no Neo, if you get the reference. So now that I got that out of the way, welcome to the channel. We're going to get right into the questions. First question, what is your opinion on collecting and investing in Dungeons & Dragons items, books, miniatures, and official old merchandise? To be honest, from an investment standpoint, I am not a fan. Reason being is when you look at the market for Dungeons & Dragons in the overall antiques and collectibles trade, it is a very niche market. Most of the gains that occurred in that market already happened on the vintage stuff. Now, I know, before I get somebody leaving me a comment, I am well aware that at present time, Dungeons & Dragons is owned by Wizards of the Coast, which is owned by Hasbro, which also controls Magic the Gathering, which gets me to the point I want to make. Right now, Magic the Gathering is where the money is. I hate to say it, but overall, I don't consider that trend changing at any time soon. So if you're going to invest in a market similar to Dungeons & Dragons, why wouldn't you go after the more popular, larger market at present time? That's not to say that things can't change for the overall market of Dungeons & Dragons, but at present time, I just don't see it. Magic the Gathering pretty much has the crown. So the trend is your friend until it ends. That's all I can say. I think even Rudy with Alpha Investments uses that saying. So there's my answer. Next question. Hi, Sean. I really like your videos about investing. What do you think about other vintage toy genres like the Alien movie toys? Again, much like the question above, the Alien movie toys, how few of them there are, from the original coveted Kenner line that came out, I think, in the late 70s, that item is a very niche market. It's true, everybody wants to go after the 18-inch Alien toy action figure, mint in box or factory sealed, graded by AFA in 85 or 90 condition. But I don't consider that to be a great investment at present time, because most people that are investing in vintage toys are going after Star Wars, Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Transformers. I do not even advise people from investing in more obscure toy lines like Mask. Those toy lines are not infinite. They are finite. A lot of those properties are not going to continually get renewed. So be careful where you put your money. Yes, I know what you're going to say. Sean, The Alien is a cult classic. That film was excellent. It is a successful movie franchise. It's well known in pop culture history. You are correct. But there is a limit as to how much somebody is going to pay for that 18-inch Alien toy that came out in 1979 or 1978 that no one bought. So that's really how you have to analyze the market. You would be better off putting the money into something else over the long term. Now, short term, if you can find one and you get it at a steal price, by all means, buy it. You can always flip it. But for the long term, no, I would not be investing in that. I am going to do more videos on this, by the way, guys. There are massive risks when investing in vintage toys. A lot of the toys were cheaply made, even back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. You have tape drying up. You have bubbles yellowing. You have a whole ton of risks in that market. Full disclosure, between the years 2015 and 2017, I sold off my entire AFA-graded, high-grade, investment-grade collection of vintage toys. I don't regret it. I think I have a couple of pieces left. I think there is a Battlestar Galactica piece I do have that's sitting on my eBay account now that's graded AFA 85 that's up for sale. That's probably one of the few pieces that I have left, and I can't wait to sell it because I'm looking to move out of that market completely. Full disclosure. Next question. I'm sure I'm the only one requesting this. You'd be surprised. But would you consider doing a video on historical documents? First, you are not the only one requesting that. I get asked that from time to time. Yes, I would. The problem is I am literally 60 to 70 videos behind right now on this channel. And before I venture off into historical documents and items of that nature, I want to be sure to get some of my other videos polished and finished and uploaded first. So within about 3 to 4 months, you'll probably see a video on historical documents. I really can't get to it any sooner. I'm sorry. You go on to state the only category I have any real money in is presidential documents. Just make sure they are authentically signed and they did not use an auto pen or it was signed by the secretary or they use a stamp. If they are authentically signed and it is a key document that president signed, you have something. Personally, I love signed documents by FDR. Franklin D. Roosevelt. That is something that I have a strong collecting passion for. He's one of my favorite presidents. You can hate me or love me for that comment. I really don't care. But overall, yes, you are smart to go after officially, authentically signed presidential documents. Good strategy. Next question. Could you do a video on prehistoric artifacts such as dinosaur, animal fossils, tools, etc.? Yes, actually, I have one planned. You want to know a secret? Sitting above those books that were written by Pat the NES Punk. They're great books, by the way. You guys should definitely seek them out. I couldn't be more pleased with them. There are arrowheads, Indian artifacts, Native American artifacts sitting on top of those books that are going to be the subject of an upcoming video. There actually is a company that grades and authenticates Native American arrowheads and artifacts. I'll talk about that more in that particular video, and I'll show you some pieces of my own collection. So yes, more videos on that are coming. Again, that's a very esoteric collecting category. That's why I didn't dive head first onto it when everybody watches my content right now to hear me talk about Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, video games, comic books, toys, and the like. So that's why I didn't dive head first into that collecting genre, but it is coming. Next question. Do you find that the death of the original creator of a collectible has an effect on the value of the items they had a hand in making, both in the long term and short term? Example, did the more recent death of Stan Lee affect the value of comics he made? Absolutely not. Stan Lee signed pretty much everything he could get his hands on. Please do not ever think that a signature from someone like Stan Lee is going to be rare and sought after. If given a choice between two comic books in the same grade and one is a CGC Signature Series book, believe it or not, guys, I'm a purist. I go after the book that's not signed. I will not pay a premium to get an autograph of Stan Lee. He signed too many items. Are there certain artists, creators, actors, celebrities out there that sign so few things that their autograph gives a lot of value to the item in question, or the autograph in itself has value? The answer is yes. But overall, if somebody's going after a pop culture mass-produced item, in most cases, they are going to want it unsigned. And I know a lot of you disagree with me. You love to argue that point. I am sorry. Most high-end collectors tell me, I don't want anything that was signed. I want it in original form. If I'm going after a Star Wars action figure, a comic book, a Magic the Gathering card, a Pokemon card, or the like. There are exceptions. Don't get me wrong. There are exceptions. I'm sure you can find examples where signed items have sold for more. I don't doubt that. But people like me and other people in the trade, when we see something signed by Stan Lee, we kind of laugh a little because he signed too much stuff. A lot of his stuff or his autograph is not going to be worth money going forward just because he's dead. It doesn't work like that, guys. It would have to be somebody who is so esoteric that they sign so few items, or somebody so iconic where the few items that they did sign have extreme value as a result. So be very careful with that mindset. That's all that I'm going to state. Next question. Sean, I really loved your Q&A on collectible video games. Any chance we could have separate Q&As on comic books, vintage toys, Magic the Gathering, and the like? The answer is yes, just not too recent. Reason being is over the past couple of months, I did a lot of Q&A videos on this particular channel, and I don't want my average viewer out there to be pretty much buried in Q&A after Q&A after Q&A, where all I do is answer questions on camera. I like to mix up those videos with original content. And that's kind of the point of this channel. So I will tell you, I do have some surprises in the works where I probably am going to do Q&As on those topics and just give you my viewpoints on those markets. I think the market could benefit from my perspective, but it's going to be probably at the earliest several months in getting them uploaded to the channel and worked on. Next question. Would love to hear your thoughts on board game collecting. I am not an overall fan, and let me be honest with you. Board game collecting has always been a niche market. Now, I know by me saying that, I'm going to get comments. Sean, have you seen the price of Fireball Island? Sean, have you seen the price of Dark Tower? Sean, have you seen the price of this new board game that came out last 3 years that's now discontinued and it's part of the wonderful H.P. Lovecraft series and it's now selling for 3 times its original value in the secondary market? The answer is yes to all that, guys. I'm well aware of this market. I know how it works. I know how it functions. Long term, though, I don't like it. It is not a viable collecting market overall. If you look at some of the prices of board games that came out in the 60s and 70s, even the 80s, and what they're selling for today, some of those items have flatlined and even decreased in value. Yes, there are diamonds in the rough, but overall, it is a niche market. Even newer tabletop games and board games can be looked at suspect, in my opinion, because a lot of the publishers that create those games automatically release them when one goes out of print. If it starts to become worth money, they will put it back into production. So it's a very hard market to predict. And number 2, it's a niche market. It is not on par with video games. It is nowhere near on par with Pokemon, Magic the Gathering. If you have a passion for it, by all means, collect it. I have nothing against you having a passion for this stuff and just wanting to own it. The problem is, though, if you are looking at it from an investment standpoint, that's where you could potentially get burned because that is a very niche market. Speaking of niche markets, let's go to the next question. Sean, how do you feel about VHS tapes? Okay, I'm going to give my full opinion on movie collecting. And this is going to count for DVD collecting. It's going to count for Blu-ray directing. But you did ask about VHS tapes. I do not like VHS tape collecting as a thing. There are certain movies out there that have gone out of print that were never re-released on DVDs, that were never re-released on subsequent Blu-rays, that have value to the people that want to own those original movies. And most of those movies are very esoteric. There's a lot of niche movies in that genre. I'm not going to go into detail, but there's some really weird stuff out there that sells for a premium simply because it was never re-released again on any other format. Overall, though, you must understand the market for collectible VHS tapes is limited. It's a dead format. A lot of collectors are not going to gravitate to that market with few exceptions. You go on to ask, I've seen Black Diamond VHS tapes that may be worth some money, but not sure if that's fake. I can tell you firsthand, 9 chances out of 10, it's fake. The Black Diamond Disney tapes that you see supposedly selling for thousands of dollars, that came out of a clickbait article that was and is still circulating on the internet to this day. Black Diamond VHS Disney tapes are not really that expensive, nor are they that rare. Every once in a while, you will see an exorbitant price being paid for one if you search completed and sold listings on eBay, but that's a market manipulator trying to drum up demand for those items, because any given Sunday, pandemic aside, if you go to a flea market in America, you're bound to come across somebody selling Black Diamond VHS Disney tapes. And believe it or not all of them are worth money. Some have a little bit of value in the secondary market, but overall, you're not going to get rich from them. It's something that you should avoid entirely. If you do go to a flea market and you see a box of Disney VHS tapes and they're in their original cases and the person wants 50 cents a piece, offer to buy the whole box. You may get something that you can flip on eBay for a small profit. But overall, that is a myth, guys. That is internet clickbait at its finest. Next question. Sean, what are your thoughts about the future of original movie poster collecting? Why does the material related to key classic horror and sci-fi films from the 1930s and 60s fetch such high prices at auctions? Well, it comes down to the people that covet those particular items are still alive. And let's be honest, even if you had a parent or even a grandparent that liked those particular artifacts, it's possible that you yourself then are drawn to liking those movies and wanting to collect the memorabilia. So the market is actually shrinking a little bit. It's not as big as it used to be like 10 years back. But overall, a lot of the iconic franchises that are still kept alive by the movie studios in present day, those particular items will possibly go on and be collectibles for future generations as well. That's what we're seeing in this market. For instance, the blue chip investment grade movie memorabilia collectibles are pretty much movie posters of Universal monsters. The Frankensteins, the Draculas, the mummies, even the Creature of the Black Lagoon. All those movies are considered iconic. As a result, the movie posters that came out for those particular movies at that time were not produced in mass, and nobody hoarded them and kept them in mint condition. So today, they're quite coveted. As a matter of fact, it's not uncommon to see some of these posters sell for upwards of 6 figures at auction. Full disclosure, back in 2015, 2016, I was bidding on a Frankenstein 1 CGC 9.2 lobby card that went for something like $13,000, $14,000, and I was trying to bid on it, and my internet went out when I was trying to win the bid. So I lost out on that particular item. That is one of my biggest mistakes in the antiques and collectibles trade in the last 10 years. Because today, that particular item would probably easily be worth $20,000, $25,000 in today's market. So it's a shame that I missed out on that item because I had the money at that time. I wanted to buy that item. It's just fate intervened and said, you know what, Sean, you're not getting this item today. So overall, I do like some of those markets. I will tell you, though, stay away from a lot of the science fiction films that were released in the 50s and 60s. Not all of them are going to continue to get re-releases as time goes on. So eventually that market is going to start to decline. We're already seeing it. Those of you out there that collect vintage toy robots from the 1950s and the 1960s, that market is on a decline at present time. And reason being is younger collectors are not drawn to collect robots and space toys made of tin from the 1950s and 60s. So there are some similarities there. Just be careful if you're involved in that market. Study the trends. Watch the market. Keep your finger on the pulse of the market. Best advice I can give you. Next question. Sean, would love to see a video on vintage circus memorabilia pre-1970 and collecting it along with posters and banners with a focus on the 1880s to 1930s era. I'm assuming you're a fan of Fred G. Johnson. He was a very well-known sideshow banner artist. He was also featured in a couple of episodes of American Pickers when they came across this stuff. Full disclosure, I do know the market. I do not like this market. It's too freakish for me. I'm a huge fan of American Horror Story. The one season of American Horror Story I did not enjoy was called Freak Show. That kind of dealt with some of these same topics. As a result, I can pretty much do a video on that. The problem is I don't know how many views it would get. I will consider doing it though. I'll do a little bit research to see how popular it would be on this particular channel. And maybe I can do more videos geared towards vintage circus memorabilia and posters and banners. Full disclosure, I think Fred G. Johnson is a genius in his own right. He was an excellent artist. His work should be remembered and coveted by future generations. Whether or not that'll be the case, we'll know as time marches on. Good question. Next question. Hi, Sean. I'm curious about your thoughts on the future for Nintendo stock. It has grown 40% since March. Do you think it will continue to climb? Honestly, if the pandemic wouldn't have occurred, I would honestly use caution in investing in Nintendo stock. I was lucky enough to buy it, I think through my Charles Schwab account, back in 2015 when it was going for $15 a share, I think I was paying, and I think I bought like 100 shares. Well, today, if I would go to sell that, I think at last count, it's at $68 a share. Now, do I consider that to be a great investment overall? No, because the market for video games is cyclical. Again, guys, I paid $15 a share for that stock back in 2015. Well, why is that? Because back in 2015, Nintendo was stuck dealing with the failure of the Wii U, and the only two successful properties they had other than the Nintendo 3DS was the Nintendo Amiibo line and also Pokemon Go, which was coming out later that year. So that's why the stock was depressed. Well, obviously, we don't know which system Nintendo is going to release after the demand for Nintendo Switch dies down. So it could be that Nintendo stock that is now selling for $68, $70, $70-some a share is going to start to decline just based on future prognosis, where Nintendo has reached market penetration with everybody who wants to own a Switch already has one. So there is a risk in owning stocks of video game manufacturers and or companies. I am not a fan of them overall. I own very few shares of Electronic Arts, Activision Blizzard, and even Sony. Microsoft is an exception because most of their money comes from computer software and the like. It does not come from the Xbox line of video game systems. So that's my advice to you. If you are going to get involved in Nintendo, I'm not saying it's not going to go higher, but I am saying there is a very good potential in the future for that stock to rapidly decline based on what Nintendo does in the future with future video game systems and the like. So use caution. Next question. Sean, will you articulate what makes an expert consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade? Yes, that question is going to be answered in the video that's probably already up or soon will be up on my antique and collectible consulting business. Thank you for asking. Really quick, just to give you a rundown, it should be somebody who is independent. It should be somebody not bound by any auction house, grading company, or the like. It should also be somebody who is not only educated in antiques and collectibles, they should understand economics and finance, preferably have a degree in any one of those areas as well, and they should also know the full market. They should know antiques, antiquities, and also collectibles. If you ever go to somebody and you say, hey, what's the difference between a collectible, an antique, and antiquity? And they can't give you that answer, run. They have no idea what they're talking about. And even if you ask more direct questions like, well, what segment of antiquities do you enjoy? Or what segment of the antiques trade do you enjoy? Or which segment of the collectibles trade you enjoy? If they can't give you any specific examples as to how they help people either build portfolios or avoid catastrophe operating in these markets, by all means, run away. They don't know what they're talking about. Last question in this particular segment. Sean, what are your tips on investing in rare books, both 20th century first editions and 15th to 19th century rare books? First of all, I would tell you to go after the classics. Go after stuff that is well known. Some of you guys come to me and you go, hey, Sean, I'm investing in rare books, and I went after this book, and I'm not going to state the name, but it's a book that literally no one really heard of. Well, the investment potential of that book is limited as a result. You go on to ask, what about books that are not in English? Latin, Italian, French, German? I'm going to give you a big hint. Most well-to-do book collectors are located overall in either United States or Great Britain. The language that we speak in the United States and Great Britain or the United Kingdom is English. So as a result, unless if it's something from centuries past that has meaning and relevance today, try to get books that are in English. As a result, guys, if you are buying for investment. I usually tell people to stick with a lot of popular classic literature writers. F. Scott Fitzgerald is a favorite of mine. Ethan Frome, Ernest Hemingway, John Steinbeck, Charles Dickens. If you want to go a little bit more modern, Stephen King, Clive Barker to a certain degree. Just avoid anything present due to printing on demand. I'll cover that in another video, but printing on demand is really going to affect the value of first edition books going forward, in my opinion. So a lot of you have reached out to me and said, hey, Sean, I got a first printing of Gone Girl, or I have a first printing of 50 Shades of Grey. Well, that's great, but the market for some of those may be a little bit limited, and I don't want to go into the pros and cons of that in this video, but I just want to state that today with printing on demand, the market for first edition books in overall sense has changed. There are a few exceptions. Don't get me wrong, there are always exceptions. But the market has fundamentally changed, where if you are investing in books of the modern era, you got to use caution. Your next question, and I do want to spend some time on this too, 15th and 19th century books, if you do go after something like The Wealth of Nations, I've mentioned in some of my earlier videos, if you're a fan of Dante, Inferno, well, there's various different printings of Dante's Inferno, and based on whatever person did the illustrations for the particular version that you're thinking of investing in, that can affect the value drastically. So you can have a later version of Dante's Inferno that is worth more than an earlier version. So just keep that in mind if you are going in that direction, where you're going after some of these later released books of popular titles from past, like Dante's Inferno and the like. As a result, you can make money in those markets because some people don't realize that. Or if you have somebody who's really famous that did the illustrations for some of these books, they may think because they're a later version, they'll sell them for a discount. And as a result, you can profit from that. I will tell you, though, all the auction houses right now that cater to collectible books, they know what to look for. It's very hard to get deals at present time. I hope that advice helps. This is the end of part 1. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you have any feedback or comments, let me know in the comments section below. Thanks, guys, and have a good night.